The first regret after buying a car on payments rarely arrives as a clear thought. It doesn't say, "This was a mistake." It shows up quietly, disguised as responsibility, discipline, or adulthood. At first, everything feels justified. The car looks right, smells new, moves smoothly through the streets like a promise kept. You tell yourself the numbers make sense, that the monthly payment fits neatly into your life. And for a while, it does. Then something shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once. You begin to notice time differently. Weeks feel shorter. Paydays feel pre-assigned. The car is no longer just transportation. It becomes a fixed rhythm your finances must follow. This regret isn't about the car itself. It's about the subtle moment when a future version of you was quietly committed, without ever being asked how they would feel carrying this weight month after month. The quiet shift from excitement to weight. The first thing that changes after buying a car on payments is not your budget, but your emotional posture. In the beginning, excitement feels clean and earned. You sit higher, drive a little slower, notice reflections on the hood. The purchase feels like progress, something that confirms you are moving forward in life. Then, without warning, that feeling starts to carry weight. Not guilt, not panic, just heaviness. The car remains the same, but your relationship to it subtly shifts. Each drive is faintly accompanied by awareness, like a quiet passenger you didn't invite. What makes this moment confusing is how reasonable everything still looks. You can afford it, you planned for it, nothing is wrong. And yet, the joy becomes conditional. It depends on timing, income, stability. This is the first regret, though it rarely gets that name. It's the realization that excitement tied to long commitments slowly asks to be justified again and again, long after the moment of choice has passed. When monthly payments become a mental clock. At some point, the payment stops being a number and starts becoming a sense of time. You don't consciously count it, but it counts you. Weeks are no longer just weeks, they are distances between due dates. Paydays feel thinner, already spoken for before they arrive. This is not panic, it's quieter than that. It's a low, steady awareness ticking beneath daily life. You notice it when you hesitate before a small purchase, when you mentally rewind the month, checking whether everything still aligns. The car doesn't demand attention, but the payment gently rearranges it. What's subtle is how normal this feels. Many people live this way. The mind adapts quickly to obligations when they repeat on schedule. Over time, the payment becomes a background rhythm, shaping how freely you think about the future. The regret here isn't about money leaving your account. It's about time being pre-decided, 1 month at a time, without ever feeling dramatic enough to question. There is a strange moment when ownership starts to feel narrower than expected. On paper, the car is yours. You drive it, maintain it, park it where you like. But beneath that surface, freedom feels conditional, quietly negotiated with a contract you no longer read. You notice it in small decisions: where you go, how far, whether a trip feels worth it. The car expands your physical range while subtly shrinking your sense of choice. You move more, but consider more too. Every kilometer carries a faint calculation, not of fuel, but of obligation. What's unsettling is how easily the mind accepts this trade. Security often feels like freedom at first. Predictability can resemble control. Yet, over time, the awareness grows that some paths feel heavier simply because they add miles to something already owed. This regret isn't loud. It's the quiet realization that ownership, when tied to long commitments, can ask for permission before it lets you feel free. The subtle loss of financial flexibility. At first, nothing feels restricted. Your life continues as usual. Bills are paid, routines stay intact, and the car quietly blends into your financial landscape. The loss of flexibility doesn't announce itself. It settles in softly, like furniture that slowly takes up more room than you remembered giving it. You begin to notice it when options narrow before decisions even form. A trip is postponed. A purchase is reconsidered earlier than before. Not because you can't afford them, but because something else has already claimed that space. Flexibility isn't gone, it's just thinner, stretched across future months that now feel spoken for. What makes this moment difficult to name is how mature it appears. Planning ahead is responsible. Stability is praised. Yet beneath that, there's a quiet awareness that your money no longer waits for you to decide what it wants to become. This regret isn't about loss. It's about realizing that flexibility, once surrendered gradually, is hardest to notice precisely because life still looks functional from the outside. Over time, the car stops being something you use and starts becoming something you organize around. Not consciously, not deliberately. It happens through small adjustments that feel practical in the moment. You choose routes that feel more worth it. You cluster errands. You delay plans that don't justify the drive. None of this feels restrictive. It feels efficient, responsible. You tell yourself you're simply being thoughtful with resources. Yet slowly, the car begins to sit at the center of daily decisions, quietly shaping what feels reasonable to do and what feels unnecessary. What's subtle is how identity slips into this process. You become someone who thinks ahead, someone who plans, someone who doesn't waste. These are admirable traits, but beneath them is a quieter truth. The object you bought has started influencing how you experience spontaneity, effort, and even desire. This regret isn't about control being taken away. It's about noticing that some choices now arrive pre-filtered, already weighed against something you didn't mean to consult so often. This kind of regret doesn't feel sharp or emotional. It doesn't come with self-blame or dramatic second thoughts. In fact, it often feels like nothing at all. Life continues. The car works. Payments go through. From the outside, everything looks settled. What you feel instead is a faint dullness, like a sound that's always been there but only recently noticed. You don't think, I shouldn't have done this. You think, this is just how things are now. And that acceptance is what makes it hard to question. Because this regret wears the mask of normalcy. It blends into routine so well that it feels unreasonable to name it. You hesitate to call it regret when no single moment went wrong. The decision was logical, the outcome predictable. Yet something inside recognizes the shift. Not loss, not failure, just a quiet narrowing of emotional space. This regret isn't about wishing the past were different. It's about noticing how easily the present learned to stop asking for more. The moment the purchase stops feeling like a choice. There comes a moment when you stop remembering that buying the car was once a decision. It no longer lives in the past as something you chose. It lives in the present as something that simply exists. The payments arrive, the routines adjust, and the idea that this could have been otherwise feels distant, almost abstract. This is where the experience subtly changes. Choice turns into maintenance. Intention turns into obligation. You don't wake up questioning it because questioning feels unnecessary. The system is already running. You are inside it now, not standing outside weighing options. What's striking is how calm this feels. There's no tension, no active resistance. Acceptance settles in smoothly, like a habit you don't recall forming. The mind prefers stability, even when that stability was built on a moment of impulse or optimism. This final regret is not about wishing you hadn't bought the car. It's about realizing that the ability to choose differently faded so quietly that you never noticed the exact moment it slipped away. The first regret after buying a car on payments is not a single feeling you can point to. It's a slow rearrangement of how you relate to time, choice, and yourself. Nothing breaks, nothing collapses. Life simply becomes more pre-decided than it used to be. What stays with you isn't the car or even the money. It's the quiet awareness that something once flexible is now structured, something once optional now expected. And because this transition happened calmly, reasonably, it never asked for your attention. This is why the regret feels difficult to name. It doesn't demand correction, it only invites noticing. Not to undo the past, but to recognize how easily comfort, stability, and progress can slowly trade places with freedom without ever asking permission.